everybody, John12 back here again with another video, and today is time for another top 5. It's that time of the week again. And of course, today I bring back a return of Dragon Ball Z top 5s. Yes, I stated this, I want to say, maybe in my last podcast episode, or definitely in my last couple of top 5s, that I was thinking about making a return of Dragon Ball Z on my top 5 segments, mostly due to the fact that I do realize that my fights were over. It was pretty much done, so I kind of like transitioned it to the podcast, which of course, if you don't know what podcast I'm speaking about, is the Super Kaioken, which is my official Dragon Ball podcast for my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it yet, please go over to my playlists, where I have tons of episodes that you can check out. But that being said, mostly the biggest reason as to why I'm transitioning back to the top 5s with Dragon Ball Z is mostly due to the fact that we have a grand return of Dragon Ball Z and getting it a grand return to the limelight. Of course, we have the new movie coming out, we got the new anime series coming out, so I want to make more top 5s for the sole purpose of, amping it up, creating more hype, realistically. And also, on top of that, it's more than likely the biggest reason is that I just forget all the time. Like, every time when I do a top 5 on the podcast, I don't have a frame of reference as to what top 5 I did prior, or if I did anyone at all, because once I finish the podcast, and once it's on YouTube, I pretty much don't listen to it ever again. What's done is done. I don't go back and listen to episodes, pretty much, and that goes for everything I do on YouTube. Once a video's done, it's done. It's in your hands. You make it of what it is. As it is, it is. For me, that's how I like to think about it, so I don't really go back and say, like, oh, well, did I ever do a top 5 on this? Did I ever do something on this? Well, I can't really do that because it's on a podcast, and I'm not going to go through hours of me talking about other things than just trying to get one little frame of reference. So that's why I'm bringing it back. I'm just taking it back, Goonies style. But that being said, today I give you my top 5 Dragon Ball Z female villains. My number 1, hands down, top 5 Dragon Ball Z video is my top 5 DBZ female characters, which has tons of great views. I mean, like, if you go on Google, type in Dragon Ball Z female characters, my video is probably one of the many things you'll find that pop up in, like, the first page, which is really awesome. I like the fact that a lot of people watched it, a lot of people commented on it, a lot of people spread it around. That's great. I love that, and it's one of my, more favorite top 5s that I personally actually like. And plus, I love promoting female characters. I love, Dragon Ball Z characters, and I like the female characters. I know a lot of people like to give them less credit than they deserve, like the Bulma rant that I went on not too long ago about, the importance of the character of Bulma in the series. And a lot of people still believe that female characters are whatever when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, which I will admit that when it comes to the Z side of the series, I will admit that the female characters do take a step back per se, but that's not realistic enough for a legitimate answer to say, like, oh, well, just because of that, female characters are whatever. It's all about the male characters, or the alien characters, if you will. So it's kind of just what people have perceived, but I like to promote it. I like to be like the Joss Whedon to Dragon Ball Z. I know that's probably way more credit than I deserve, but I'm going to take that title just because I can. But that being said, there's not really that many characters in the Dragon Ball Z series, or the Dragon Ball series as I should put it, but for the specific criteria, for the specific top 5 list, I will only be choosing characters from the main canon, and specifically the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z series. I will not be choosing any characters that were made up for specials, movies, and GT. So for those types of female characters, they will not be included in this specific top 5, but I will only be choosing for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and specifically the main canon. That being said, of course, the female characters, there's tons that I really like, but of course here we're talking about the villains that really put Goku and the rest of the gang at the end of their ropes. So of course, let's just get right down to this top 5. Coming in number 5 is actually a two-way tie. I originally had no intentions of trying to put them together in a tie, but they're so realistically awesome, and at the same time they have the same amount of screen time, and at the same time they came around the same point and period of this Dragon Ball saga, which was, of course, Goku and the rest of the gang trying to gather up the Dragon Balls, and of course this is during the Red Ribbon arc. And of course, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, coming in number 5 comes to a tie between Colonel Violet and, of course, Hasky, the Master Thief. I was about to say Master Chief, but let's scratch that. It's Master Thief. I don't know why Chief comes to mind. Maybe because of Halo, and I'm such a huge fan. That being said, that has nothing to do with this. Master Thief Hasky and, of course, Colonel Violet are from the Dragon Ball series. They came around the Red Ribbon Army arc. And Colonel Violet, essentially, if you don't know who she essentially came on, and she's the only known female officer in the entire Red Ribbon Army, and if she is obviously hired by, I want to say, General Cooper or what have you, specifically to retrieve the Dragon Balls from Goku himself. And of course, along the way, she goes into a whole bunch of other misfires and misadventures and a whole bunch of dangerous other type of stuff that you would expect from a Dragon Ball series. And of course, Hasky, the Master Thief, is of course the same kind of character done again, except she's like, I like to consider her like the Mad Max, the female Mad Max of Dragon Ball. She basically has the same design that Toriyama, I guess, created for her, and obviously she's known across the land, the wastelands, if you will. Just trying to keep that Mad Max flavor. She's known around the wastelands as the greatest thief ever, and of course she is given and hired, I think once again, hired from the Red Ribbon Army to specifically retrieve the Dragon Balls from Goku once again. But of course, Goku, being the guy he is, of course defeated them and, went on with his adventures with the rest of the gang, Bulma, Krillin, Master Roshi, so on and so forth. But that being said, these characters are really awesome. They're a part of the Dragon Ball lore, which I always like. And I appreciate the fact that there was more thought into, supporting one-shot kind of characters just as much as just any other kind of main character, especially when it comes to Dragon Ball. Because when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, there's a lot of really funny and awesome one-shot, but if you're not a part of the main cast, it's almost like you don't matter. That's why I like the Dragon Ball side of things a little bit more when it comes to character development. But that being said, Colonel Violet and Hasky, the Master Thief, not Chief, has to be on my list of female villains that almost got the Dragon Balls from Goku himself. But that being said, coming number 4 on my list has to go to Dragon Ball Z's Princess Snake. Now, of course, if you don't know who Princess Snake is, she's essentially a succubus from the other world who, of course, lives on Snake Way, which is, of course, a extraordinarily long distance road leading up from the check-in station all the way to King Kai's planet. And of course, she's square right in the middle, and she essentially lures people into her snake palace for the sole purpose of eating them. And she's also a gigantic snake herself. So essentially, that's the basis of Princess Snake. And of course, I always enjoyed her episode. I know a lot of people like to put a little bit a little more depth into the episode than it needs, but I always appreciate the comedic side and just the hysterical kind of Dragon Ball Z kind of stuff you would expect from that specific side of the arc. And of course, this is during the Saiyan arc, where there was a lot of things going down where Goku obviously needed to get things done immediately, and this was just a wonderful one-shot segue amongst many segues where he's obviously sidetracked and has to go through this entire misadventure, this entire mishap, just for the sole purpose of getting back on Snake Way to train with King Kai. And also, I always liked the little attraction that Princess Snake had towards Goku. I don't know why, but when I was a kid, I just always liked the fact that she brought him in for the sole purpose of eating him, but then along the way, she kind of fell in love with him and wanted to keep him in the palace forever, kind of like how she wanted King Yama to stay. But that completely obviously went 180, seeing as how the Saiyans were coming. You had to fucking deal with that kind of threat, because it was a legitimate threat. But I always liked Princess Snake. I always thought she was a pretty interesting villain. And I always liked that episode. I don't know why. Out of the many filler-esque kind of episodes in Dragon Ball Z, that one is one of my favorites, especially from the Saiyan saga, with the exceptions of Gohan's filler episodes. But that being said, going to number 3 on my list has to go to Launch. Now, the interesting about this is that I originally was going to put her at number 2 on this list, but specifically I put her on number 3 for the sole purpose is that Launch, as we all know, has a dual identity. She's, of course, she has her good side and she has her evil side. The evil side is the blonde side, and that's where she gets stuck on this list as a villain, because obviously she's known across the board as, part of the Team Goku, if you will. But along the way, she still maintains this villainous kind of, exterior when it comes to the blonde side of Launch, which is the evil side, where even though she's a part of the team, she still does a lot of things for herself. She's still very self-centered. She's still angry. She's really spunky and really, balls to the wall kind of chick. She always has an assault rifle, super mecha machine guns and gigantic rocket launchers just ready to shoot at Goku and the rest of the gang, which I always really liked about Launch. And you know what? All around, I always liked Launch. I know a lot of people don't like to give her credit. I freaking love Launch. She was an awesome character. I loved both identities. The cute side, the cute, fun, sweet side, and then the really angry, super villainous kind of side. I always liked that dual identity that Launch had, and I always find it sad and depressing as a Dragon Ball fan that Akira Toriyama continues to forget she exists. Does anybody find this odd, or is it just me that Toriyama continues to forget that Launch exists in this universe? It's like, dude, come on, she was like, it's so sad for us, Launch fans. It's like, we love Launch to death. She was so awesome in Dragon Ball. She was great as the villain. She was great as the, the cute, sweet young woman who was living with Master Roshi for reasons unknown that we don't really understand at the time. And she was lost by the time Saiyan Saga happened. The second Saiyan Saga happened, if you're a Launch fan, that's pretty much game over for you, because that was the end of Launch. I don't know why Toriyama forgot her so many times, but yeah, I guess when you create a universe of fully entertaining characters like Goku and Piccolo and Vegeta and Trunks and pick a name, it's hard to remember all the various other characters you created. So I understand it at the end of the day, but deep down inside, I wish Launch was still with us. She's still around, but she's not, with us. That being said, Launch is number 3 on my list. Number 2 on this list has to go to Mai, of course, a part of the Pilaf gang. She was a consistent villain on the series. Even to this day, she's still kind of a villain, where she continues to try and help and pursue the Dragon Balls, and of course try and defeat Team Goku and try to lure them out of the way so she and the rest of the Pilaf gang can continue to grasp the Dragon Balls, no pun intended, to obviously create the dragon so they can create a wish that gives them either eternal wealth or what have you. Pick a freaking wish. They want it, and they're going to stop at nothing to do it. I mean, hell, they've been trying since Dragon Ball, all the way to GT, and all the way to Battle of Gods. Hell, even to Fukatsu no F, they're still trying to get those dang Dragon Balls. I don't know what's with them, but they're just obsessed with the Dragon Balls. Essentially, if you don't know all about the Pilaf gang, and you're just trying to get into Dragon Ball real quick, and if you have any kind of remote intelligence of anime in general, basically the best point of reference that I can give you is that the Pilaf gang specifically are basically Dragon Ball's answer to Team Rocket. If you've watched Pokemon, which I'm sure a lot of kids out there have, if you watched Pokemon and you like Team Rocket, you're going to love the Pilaf gang, because that's essentially Dragon Ball's equivalent of Team Rocket, the Pilaf gang, because they're consistent with their goals and they're always failures at attempting to accomplish that one goal. And Mai has always been one of my favorite characters. I love all of them equally at the same time. I mean, Shu is awesome. Emperor Pilaf is hysterical, just design-wise, and as it is. But Mai was always my favorite. I always liked she had this really interesting and cool, like, Cold War, like, espionage, kind of military-esque kind of feel to her. And at the same time, she was always, I want to say, the smartest of the entire gang. And she always got shit done, which I always liked about Mai. And she was always consistent. And hell, she even helped out King Piccolo for a time being. And I'm not talking about her Dragon Ball Evolution freaking appearance. No, the actual canon version where she was like, a legitimate thing there. Even though it's kind of more on the comedic side in comparison. But it's still canon to what I love, which is Dragon Ball. But that being said, Mai hands down one of my favorite villains of the series. She's always been consistent, she's always been a staple when it comes to Dragon Ball in general, and of course when it comes to the journey to attempt to capture the Dragon Balls, Pilaf Gang is always somewhere near. They're always close by. But that being said, I'm going to skip their honorable mentions right now, mostly due to the fact that I've been talking far too long, and obviously the rest of the characters are from specials and movies and, you know, GT and what have you, and I don't need to open the floodgates for those kind of things. Maybe I'll do in a separate video, but for this time, I'm going to skip their honorable mentions. But nonetheless, going to my number one pick when it comes to Dragon Ball Z female villain characters has to go to the woman herself, the AI herself, Android 18. Yes, the strongest and most powerful female character on all of DBZ is number one in my book, mostly due to the fact that she was one of the only females to ever defeat the entire Z Warriors, and she has one of the most interesting and badass fucking battles with Vegeta ever. I know a lot of people like to put it down and be like, hey, Vegeta loses all the time. Bullshit. He never lost like that. I'm going to say that right here, and this is going to be the last time I mention it, because I know a lot of people like to bring it up and debate me with this. This is the last time I talk about it. Android 18's fight with Vegeta is the best opening appearance to any kind of villain I've ever seen. I mean, she looks like the total opposite of what a character could be to dominate a character like Vegeta. And this was Vegeta when he was in his, you know, I don't want to say prime, that's the wrong word to use it, but when he was on a humongous high. I mean, he defeated the androids, he impressed everybody by transforming to a Super Saiyan, he achieved an amazing goal, he did something without Goku's help. It was an amazing moment for Vegeta. And then that was entirely destroyed by Android 18's appearance, where she just dominated his ass, just beat him down, broke his arm in the most coolest kind of way just by kicking him. I mean, that's like some freaking, you know, that's like some Anderson Silva type shit. The arm just broke just from one kick. It was amazing. Android 18 is awesome. One of my favorite villains and / female characters from DBZ. She's definitely the strongest. She's essentially the Ronda Rousey of freaking DBZ. I said this once before, and I still believe it's true. I'm just saying that with that one fight, I know they debate this with me. I know it. I can almost hear it. I can almost hear it just from stating these words. But it's almost like watching Ronda Rousey tap someone out. That's the same kind of pleasure and amazement that I get from watching Android 18, you know, just freaking kick ass and just defeat Vegeta. Is the same equivalence, you know, when you compare the two. But that being said, Android 18, number one in my book. Hands down the only one to defeat the entire Z Warriors. Hands down the only one to actually eliminate the entire Z Warriors. Of course with the help of her brother, but, you know, he's not on this list because he's a male. Technically they're androids, but he's a male android, and we don't like those. We like the female ones. I'm just saying, Ex Machina for the win. That being said, hope you guys enjoyed my top 5 list. I hope you guys encouraged to spread this one around, hopefully just as much as the first one. And of course, if you haven't seen that first one, please go to my channel, check it out. It's my top 5 Dragon Ball Z female characters list. If you like the female characters and you want to see my ranking of them, please go to that video to check it out to see the ranking of it. Nonetheless, this has been my ranking and top 5 list of these top 5 Dragon Ball Z female villain characters. Of course, if you don't agree, let me know in the comments below what your favorite female villainous characters were in the entire series. If you want to include GT in the movies and specials, please include those as well. But for me, this is my personal list. And of course, as always, it's subjective. It's my personal thoughts. So of course, if you agree, comment below. But of course, hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. And this has been Jean 12.